started. We're doing today Halacha Zayin, could be Halacha Zayin. And the Shach says like this: Shem Udvash Lev Dikachavim. If you have oil or honey from a guy, mutarim, you're allowed to eat them. I'm sorry guys. There's no Isser B'Shalakim, because in Achai, V'lemishim Ge'ulev K'chavim, that's what we're going to talk about today, why not? And also you could drink water. There the Gemaros says there's no problem with B'Shalakim because it's Nachachai. And we'll explain, like the Shach said, there's no problem of Kalim because it's Stam Kalim and Ibn. Okay, it's a shayla about what that means, but we'll assume like that. So we're talking about the main part of it, which you see from the title. We're talking about shemen, that oil, and why is it not a problem? Why are you worried about the Kalim that it's from a guy's kli? So our din is really in at least in three places. One is right over here that we just said. Shemen is you don't have to worry about kalim when you want to buy shemen. It's also in the Ramah a couple of dinim ago. When we passed that din, I told you we'll do it later. The Ramah is even stronger. Even though they put animal fat right onto the kalim, don't worry about it. And the most clear, or the most direct place is in Siman Kuf Gimel. Most of the place we speak about is in Siman Kuf Gimel, where it says Shemen Dvash Agayim. That's how it is. Afa Pisha Hemu Vushol Mutar. You're allowed to eat them. Why? Because you don't have to worry about the bleas from meat. Because, like the Ramah said in our Siman, and we're going to see in a second from Gemaros, that the basar, the time of the basar is lefkam. And therefore it's mutter v'chein l'dvash. Okay, so again, it's the same part. You're going to see in a second. It's 5 Gemaros about this, about Shem and Dvash, that you don't have to worry about it because it's next time with God. Okay, so before we get to the Gemaros and to the din of it, I'm going to tell you the two cases that we want to talk about. I'm going to talk to you about two different halach l'maisis situations, which is going to be then we're going to see how the din apply, whether it does or doesn't apply to those cases. Okay, and the first one is, like it said in the title, vegetable oil. Shemen and shuman are incompatible? That's what you just said. The Shulchan just said that. Yeah. That shemen, they put the buzz. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to tell you what it's a Gemara. It's 5 Gemaros. So I'm going to tell you in a second. Okay, that's what we're getting to. But first, let's talk about some cases. Okay, so the first case we're talking about is vegetable oil. Okay, and we're talking about vegetable oil. Particularly vegetables, of course, are kosher. When we say vegetable oil, I mean vegetable oil or seed oil. We use those interchangeably. And the issue that we have with vegetable oil is that it could be made in the same factory that does animal fat also. Okay, the animal fat and vegetable oil go through similar processes. They're referred to as RBD. You may have heard those terms, RBD, and that stands for refining, bleaching, and deodorizing. Okay, refining, bleaching. I'll tell you just quickly. Refining means that you heat it up and you then filter it. Then you centrifuge it to get out phosphosolids, okay, whatever that means. It's a kind of soapy materials that develop in the oil. And bleaching means you heat it up and you put it through diatomaceous earth to get out certain undesirable colors. Diatomaceous earth.
Is that like
filter? Is that what?
It's like mud?
Yeah, to get out certain colors. That's bleaching. And deodorizing, I'm going to talk to you about in a second. That's to get out certain deodorizing to get out certain odors. We'll talk about that more in a second.
You use a filter. Why is it called bleaching?
It's because you put it through the diatomaceous to get out the carotene, certain colors out of it. You're trying to bleach it to soften the color by doing that process. So our question is going to be now the question is going to be if they're made in the same factory. Now, it so happens that right now in the United States, there are none, maybe even no plants that actually do that together, animal and vegetable together. There used to be one very close to this area. That doesn't exist anymore, doesn't function anymore. So for American oils, this is less of a shayla. American oil, what I mean is certain oils like corn oil that tends to come from the United States. This shayla is less serious of a shayla, less likely. Other oils that come from out of the country, in other countries, it's much more common, in particular for oils that have similar properties to animal fat. Okay, you'll see in a second how the processes work. You want the machinery, it's a distillation style machine runs with ones of the similar properties, like palm oil and coconut oil have similar properties to animal fat. Okay, so the truth is that the refining and the bleaching are assumed to not be such a serious shaila, at least by the end. Okay, they run on kalim with not so much metal to them, and not so much, and long processes.
They're hot. They're cold.
They're hot. I'm sorry, I forgot to say they're hot. Okay, those are hot processes, but they're not. But they're assumed that there's not such a serious problem with the evidence about it. Okay, and what people focus on is deodorizing. Okay.
So you finish why it's not such a serious problem?
So I'd say because they're on a kiln that have not so much metal to them, and there's long processes of lots and lots of
Why is long better? Long should be wet.
long because there's a lot of kosher oil running through it. A lot of kosher oil running through it. So the amount of chafe versus the amount of kosher is so small that we don't have to worry about it so much. Okay, but deodorizing is what people focus on. Okay, so I'm going to show you a crude picture, a crude diagram of a deodorizer. Okay, yes, I'm sorry, I did not mean it. Yes. Okay, crude is what we refer to oil that has not been RBD. Okay. Anyhow, but in this diagram is one type of deodorizer. This is with a tray. Okay, that's one style. There's another style that uses packing. Okay. The idea is basically the same. And I'm going to show you one that has 3 trays. That's not Lamaisa. Okay. Usually it has much more trays in it. Okay. Now it has 3. You see 3 trays over here. Okay. What's also not accurate about this picture is that really the trays are connected to each other. What I mean is that the top of one is the bottom of the other. But okay, for our purposes, we have three trays. Okay, and into it you pour oil. Okay, oil pours into the first tray, and then it rolls across and pours into the second tray, and then to the third tray, and out the bottom. Okay, in our purpose, that's what's going on here. The oil is traveling from tray to tray. But what else is going on is that you pump steam in to the bottom of that oil. Okay, so you're heating up the oil as it's passing through. And the reason why you're heating up the oil is because when you heat up the oil, certain volatile chemicals, certain chemicals that boil out really easily, pop out of the oil. Those are the odors. That's what you're trying to get rid of, the ketones and the aldehydes. The odors that you don't want, they boil out. Okay, so what happens is as the oil travels through the deodorizer, as it passes, goes down, trickles around through the machinery, in this case it's a tray, through trays, it's slowly losing all those odors that you didn't want. Okay, that's why it's a deodorizer. Okay, the odors boil out or evaporate out faster. They blow out of the deodorizer, leaving at the end this oil that smells much better. Okay, the color is just for color. It's not. I don't think it really changes color in this. But anyhow, it just makes it look like something's happening. Okay, I mean, in a bleaching, it changes color. I don't know if it changes color, but it looks good. Anyhow, okay. So what happens like this? So that's what's going out.
They don't capture it.
Do they? Yeah, actually, they do capture it. I'm sorry. Yes, they do capture it. There are industries that want to use those chemicals that are coming out, and they capture them. Yes, some of them go to like
category 1.
They are not group 1s. No, those things are not. Some of them go to vitamin E. Companies use them, and other people use them for other things. Yeah, those things that are
No.
the vapors are going out. The vapors are going. They're not just flying out. They're going out of a pipe.
Oil is
The oil. This heat is going through the oil. Vapors are rising out, and there's an escape. There's a place for the vapors to get out of the machine.
oil
When you heat up the oil, vapors are coming out of it. These vapors, right? But the vapors don't stay in the machine. There's an exit. There's a way for them to get out. Well, instead of just going out to the air, then someone's capturing it. Yes, they do capture them. I forgot what they do with them. What? Aldehyde is a classification. It's like saying, it's a broad group. So the ones that would come from oils would not be group 1. Right? The ones that we would catch with this would not be group 1. Okay, so now, at first, years ago, people assumed that even though this machine, there's a lot of metal in this machine, they assumed that the bleeds that are in here would be bottled anyhow. And that a lot of that changed. It's even reported, true or not, I don't know, that Reblaze Silver and Chaim Goldsweig both said that if you were to run vegetable oil through this machine, it would be mutter b'diavad. Okay, that would be mutter b'diavad. But Rebelsky once went to visit one of these. Okay, he went to visit one of these machines, and he looked at the machine. He said, "I also thought that it was going to be bottled and everything was going to be fine." He said, "But then I looked inside and I found out that this looks like such a beautiful machine and it's all nice and shiny and this and that." He says, "But the truth is, they never clean the machines, and the oil just gets baked on, He says, and it's like mom's like caked on. It's not just that there's a lot of metal. There is a lot of metal in the deodorizer, but it's not just there's a lot of metal. There's huge globs of fat just sitting there on the machinery.
It's a fact.
Yeah, if they run animal fat through here, then what's running through here is animal fat. And he said to the point that I know that when they kasher them, if you ever want to switch over a plate to become kosher, you have to kasher this machine. And to kasher it, they work with jackhammers, okay, to break apart all the animal fat that's caked on the years worth of animal fat sitting in the machine. So the point is, Rabelsky looked at this and he said, this is crazy. He's sorry, it's a bad word. He said, this is treif. Okay, he made up a new word. He said the Shem and Hamarul bug that we have over here is treif. Okay, it's a made up word. Okay, so he said this stuff is, he says no good. He said he made up a word, a really interesting word, and he said the word is treif. Okay, and that's assumed, and that's what we tell people. Well, we for sure tell people these about hashgacha. Think about it. Just stop for a second before we talk. I'm going to talk the rest of these pages. Talk to you about the Tzmut of Usher. Sitting in the United States, where we have so many choices of kosher oil, it's of course prescribed with hashgacha. It's so silly. What? No, I said on American type oils, on American oils.
Not canola oil or corn oil.
So those are. The truth is, there's almost no shayla to those, but and for that reason, almost every single one has a shkoch on it because it's really easy to get a shkoch on it.
There's a few plants.
There's a lot, it's because it's really easy to get a shkoch on it. There aren't so many plants. That's true, and with such ease, whether it's so easy to make sure you have one that has hashgacha, then of course that's what you should be doing. But in case of b'diavad, then you have that. We're going to talk about that's the next bunch of pages to talk to you about what the din is. What's the ikar din? Not what I actually do in practice. Should I buy some of hashgacha? Okay, so
someone will call and say I use vegetable oil.
I didn't finish it. Okay, now the second shot. So that's one shot we're going to talk about. Okay, what we're going to talk about is not whether it should be butter. We're going to accept that Rabelsky said that no, it's not going to be butter. We're going to talk about a different reason about it. What?
Scrubbers, is that associated with oil somewhere?
Scrubbers.
Scrubbers are in here.
Scrubber, right? It's clean that. Okay, so like this. The other shiloh has to do with overseas transport. Okay, and that is like this. When most of the what we call tropical oils. It's palm oil and palm kernel oil and coconut oil come from the Far East. Okay, that's where the palm trees are, and that's where these kind of things grow, and that's where they come from the Far East. They come from the Far East. They don't come in little 1-gallon containers. Okay, they come in ship holds. Okay, they come in boats where they come in boats where the product doesn't sit in a container. The product sits in the boat. Okay, the boat has a hole. There's a hole on this boat. The boat has dozens of holes, okay? That is to say they're huge vats, okay, that hold hundreds of thousands of gallons of oil or something else, okay? You think I'll keep everybody entertained, okay? So the boat has got dozens of holes, okay? Every hold holds something else. Every holds something else. Now, most of the things that go in these boats across the ocean are completely kosher. Okay, acetone and turpentine and naphthalene, things that have no shaykhs, no kashrus system at all. But coming to our direction is coming, vegetable oils are coming in our direction. Crude, yeah, usually comes crude. Vegetable comes in our direction. And what we give them back as a present, what we send them back is lard and tallow. Okay, that's what we send. Okay, we got lots of lard and tallow. And we have some other things that are sensitive, but we'll focus on our lard and tallow. That's what we send to them. We have lots of that. Americans don't want to use that so much, and they do. So we send it back to them. Okay, so there are 3 real shilos to the boats, and we're going to talk about none of them. Okay, there are 3 shilos to these boats. Okay, and the first is maybe the hole that my vegetable is sitting in yesterday held tallow. Okay, no, it went to the Far East with tallow and it came back in the same hole is holding kosher oil. Okay, that shiloh we spoke about when we went to those camps. You all remember we spoke about it about 10 years ago. Okay, the second shiloh is what about maybe my hole has oil in it, and right next door to it, attached to it, is another hole that's holding treif oil right now. Not that it held it yesterday. They have tallow in it.
Like I said, tell goes up.
So it's true that tallow goes that way and vegetable comes this way, but life is not so simple. So, like for example, if the boat makes its first stop in Galveston, okay, it could drop off some oil and pick up some lard, and then make a next stop in California or next stop on the East Coast. And in its transport, it's not always overseas. There are times that it's in between, and it's making stops along in the United States.
Those things are heated?
But yes, so that second channel, has to do with the way they build the boats. And the parts of the shayla have to do with the way they build the boats and bittul and something called kafir dams. We spoke about that also in Hagos Kalim. Kafir dams. So you don't remember because you weren't here then, but we spoke about that also in Hagos Kalim, also about 10 years ago. Okay, the printed version is coming out one of these days.
Crude PK oil is fine.
What?
Any crude oil.
Why? That's what we're talking about.
Before the transport, production.
When they actually produce it, it just comes from
It's crude.
Yeah, it comes as it's the shayla is the boat. Okay,
Right.
clear that board here.
And wash it out, just out of curiosity.
Yes. So we talked about that. We talked about the hold itself. We talked about that. Whether there is a kashering, there's this three load rule. These are all things we talked about back then. Okay, that's not today's discussion. And the last shayla, I'm just telling you the three shayla. The last shayla is that there's a steam system that warms up product at the right times, particularly when they're about to unload it, and that steam system is used for the whole boat. Okay, so those shaylas we're not going to talk about. What we're going to talk about is the base of the shaylas from our din. Okay, now what happened was about 10 or so years ago, maybe a little more than that. A lot of rabbanim got unhappy with the way the major hashkachas were dealing with this issue of boats coming from the Far East. And there were all kinds of meetings and all kinds of kalkaire kind of things. And there were lots of back and forth about that, with the big hashkachas explaining why, first of all, why they thought in din you should be mekel, and second of all, why in practice we have to be mekel. A lot of food that we eat is hanging on this, how we deal with this. And it's very important to be mekel. And they explained those parts of it. And the rabbanim it was back and forth a bunch of things. And then, there's a Satmar journal called Ginas Vradim. Okay, I'm trying to say it's very interesting. And in two of the issues of that journal, they printed letters. One is a letter of somebody responding to a letter from Rabbi Genak. So you don't see Rabbi Genak's letter, but he keeps quoting him. Quote a few lines of him and tell him why he's all wrong. And, a whole bunch of, a whole long thing. And then argued that by one of the younger light in one of the Satmar Kohanim who argued that Rabbi Genak was really right. So there's a whole back and forth a bunch of times. Very interesting. And a nice amount. Some of the Marmar Kermis I'm going to tell you about are coming from there. Okay, so there's lots to do back then. Okay, so now I told you about two shilos. We have our shilo. One is the vegetable plant or factory, and one is the boats carrying the stuff. Okay, so now let's talk. Now, the following screen is going to be scary. Okay, so you don't have to look at it. Okay, the Gemara, there are 5. This is not what you're supposed to put onto a slide. Okay, 1,000 words on a slide. That's not what it's supposed to be. But what you're supposed to get out of this is like this. There's 5 Gemaras that talk about whether you could eat shemen or davash from a goy. Okay, that is to say, the second parak of Avodah Zarah. The second parak of Avodah Zarah is full of all kinds of foods that you're allowed to eat from goyim, you're not allowed to eat from goyim. It's some things that are minatin, and some of them are kutzeres, and all kinds of things. And the Gemara says, first the Mishnah says, they said you can't eat shemen, but Rebbe was matir to eat shemen. That's one Gemara. Then the Gemara says, wait, what's the problem? So he says, no, don't worry about the kelim because next time lefkam. And then another Mishnah says that you could eat davash. And then another Gemara has a shayla whether you could eat oil. Okay, and the Gemara talks about a certain part of the shayla. And then davash, the Gemara says you for sure can eat. Okay, so there's back and forth 5 different Gemaras here about whether shemen and davash, whether they're mutter or asr. Okay, and now for all of you who are reading so quickly, I feel bad for you because. Okay, now. Well, the Pri Megadim lays it out like this. He says there are 5 Gemaras. He says there are 4 Shittas in the Rishonim had explained those Gemaras. Okay, I'm only going to tell you 2 of them. Okay, to keep us focused, I'm going to tell you 2 of them. Okay, and that is like this. We're going to focus on one Gemara. 2 Gemaras. The Gemara says the same thing twice. The Gemara says the same thing about shemen and about davash. And the Gemara says, "Lamai nechashlo." What could be wrong with shemen? Why shouldn't you eat oil from a guy? So the Gemara says, if they may mix something into it, Mr. Sari. That word means something along the lines of, it will become spoiled. Okay, something along those lines. Okay, the next little words is okay, that's not important to us. And then it goes what about maybe it was made on treif kalim? Next time of gamhu mutter. Okay, so that's what the Gemara says why shemen and davash are mutter is because there's no problem of iruve because Mr. Sorry, and there's no problem of kalim because next time of gam.
Is crude oil edible?
Sure. Why is it edible? Yeah. So now, we're gonna focus on is on three machlokes on what three of those terms mean. Okay, what does it mean mishum iruve? What does it mean Mr. Sorry? And what does it mean next time of gam? Okay, the Gemara says this is the pshat why you're allowed to eat shemen and tavash. Why you're allowed to eat shemen? So we're going to a machlokes here about what iruve means, what Mr. Sorry means, and what next time of gam means, and as follows. Okay. Rashi says mishum iruve means is they might have mixed wine into it. Okay, and the Ram learns that iruve means is they might have mixed meat into it. Okay, and because of that machlokes, what does it mean when the Gemara says Mr. Sorry? So Rashi learns is that wine is lefkam into oil. Okay, and the Rama learns that if iruve means they might mix in meat, that means this meat is lefkam into oil.
What does that mean? It doesn't mix meat?
They would mix animal fat. They would fat into the oil. Okay, they might mix in some meat, meaning fat, okay, into it. Okay, so that's how they learn. Because of how they learn iruve has to do how they learn the machlokes and Mr. Sorry, and then the Gemara says, what about the kalim? So Rashi says it's Ein Ben Yomi. And the Rambam says, because the meat is lafkam. Okay, so you right away notice something that's a dochik in the Rambam. Okay, the Gemara, 10 words apart from each other, calls mixing meat into oil Mr. Sari and Nersam lafkam. That doesn't read so well, according to Rambam. Okay, not my deal. So it's not a great read in the Rambam, but that's how the Rambam learns. Okay, so the machlokes here, the Rashi and the Rambam. Again, there are two other sheets in Rishayim, not relevant to us for now. For today. So there's two other, these is Rashi and Ram. Rashi learns that the Gemara is telling you is that wine is next on lefkam into oil.
We're not talking about bliss, right? We're talking about the end.
Both. Well, we're talking about the end. We're talking about...
Anybody know about the end?
No. And that's on lefkam, we're talking about kalim. That's looking at but iruve means they actually mix it in, and that's on lefkam, the Gemara says maybe it's kalim. So according to the Rambam, the Gemara said that the blias of meat are lefkam into oil. Okay? And when all those Shulchan Aruchs that I showed you, Aradin and Halacha and Sim Kuf Gimel, is because they're passing like the Rambam. Okay? The Rambam said that meat is lefkam into oil. So don't be worried about kalim, that food was mixed, that oil was made on treif kalim with animal fat, or that they actually mixed it in, because meat is lefkam, because we pass like the Rambam. Okay? Now, just as an aside, you should just know, as part of the tummeling in those articles that I told you about, is there were questions of, does it mean only, does shemen maybe only mean olive oil? That's not much like that. So maybe it only means pig fat, not other fats. Okay, so there's lots of back and forth over there. The Pasha says that it means all animal fat and all vegetable oil. Okay, and you can look there, lots and lots to say that people who diuk back and forth about it. Okay, so the Shulchan Aruch is passing like the Ram, Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah pass like the Ram, and the Ramah has a tshuva about this. We've talked about this tshuva beforehand. The tshuva about oils being carried in treif barrels, and the shaila is maybe they smear the barrels with treif oil, and the Ramah says, the shiny chazir, don't worry about that they might mix in pigs. The davar mos will be yoser mikol shrotzim shaboilim. Okay, so the Ramah says, don't worry about that. They might have mixed animal fat into it because it's awful tasting. Okay, in fact, I'll tell you that now. We're going to see what the Ramah. So the Ramah explained the Gemara. Okay, the Gemara didn't say that. The Gemara said it's lafkam, and the Ramah says because it's mos hu b'yoser. Okay, I'll tell you some more about that in a second. Okay, so we're going to see the Ramah who's giving an explanation. We're going to see a nafkamina from it in a minute. Okay. So I told you the Shulchan Aruch, and I showed you the Ramah, and in two places, Ramah in Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah in his Chuvas, paskins like this Gemara, like the Rambam, that meat, blias of meat are lefkam. However, the Shach in Sim Kuf Gimel disagrees. He says no, the din is like Rashi. Okay, the main focus of the Shach over there in Kuf Gimel is on what the Ramah says. There's a Ramah in Kuf Gimel that I did not show you. Okay, and that's what the Shach is doing, what the Ramah actually means. But the Shach says I don't know what to tell you. It's true that the Rambam learns like that in the Gemara. But that's not the din. The din is like Rashi, that only wine is lefkam. The Gemara never says anything about meat being lefkam. He says there's no Gemara. According to Rashi, there's no Gemara that said that meat is lefkam, and we pass like he says we should pass like Rashi that meat is not lefkam. Okay, wine is lefkam, but meat is not lefkam. Okay, so the Minchas Yaakov says like this. Minchas Yaakov says like this. He says, okay, let's believe him that the din would be like Rashi. Let's accept that the din would be like Rashi. That there's no Gemara that says that meat is lefkam into things. He says, but why aren't we choshish that they actually mixed animal fat into it? Why shouldn't we think that somebody mixed animal fat into it? Seems reasonable. They're both oil. Oil and fat are very similar. So why shouldn't we be choshish? So the Minchas Yaakov says like this. He says that when we say, or at least when the Shach says we should be machmer b'shitas Rashi, v'chol zeh dafke she'adinim bevadish in this arabay. Okay, it's when we know that they actually mix animal fat into it, or sheyesh b'klitas kelim. We know that it's made on claim that are b'nei yamin, but avo vadem and hastam. But if we don't know, we just have stam something in front of us, so we don't know whether it was made up with the animal fat or not. Then we assume that there's no oil into it. Which is to say is, the Gemara, even according to Rashi, the Gemara said, let's be worried that they put wine into it, or they put on a treif kalim, but a wine kalim. But to think that they put animal fat into it, we're not choshesh for that. Now, the Minchas Yaakov is being stronger, so to speak, than he needs to be. He says is, the case we were machmer is we yadin and bevadei. Okay? But so according to Minchas Yaakov, and Minchas Yaakov says another thing. He says, I want to tell you something. He says, the Shach, I told you to cook gimel, is machmer like Rashi. He says, but you know that the Shach in our sin, in Kuf Yudalid, he brings the Chuvas Ramah. He says, what's going on here? If you pass like Rashi, why are you bringing the Chuvas Ramah? Why do you say in Sim Kuf Yudalid, on our din, he says, and go look at the Chuvas Ramah, who tells you that it's worse than all, it's Sarok, I don't know what the words were, with the pigs growing in course, okay? That's really awful tasting. He said, why did the Shach over here bring that? So he says, it's because the Shach is not saying you should automatically say it. He's saying, if you know that there was animal fat put into it, then it's awesome. If it's just a chash, it's just, you don't know, don't have to be choshesh for that kind of a thing. Okay, so if we were to stop right here, we were to stop right now, we would say is, the Shach says, the bleas are always lefkam. So the vegetable oil and the ships would be always okay. The Shach says that we should machmer for shitas Rashi, that it's not lefkam. But the Minchas Yaakov says, well, hold on a second, that's only if we know. Okay, and we don't know. You have no idea whether the oil you have in front of you went on a ship together with animal fat, or you don't know if it was made in a plant that makes animal fat and vegetable. You don't know that. So then he says even the Shach would agree also that you could be mekel.
I don't know that Rashi argues on the Rambam.
Not that he argues on the Rambam. It's that if you learn the Gemara as a chash of wine, then there is no Gemara saying it's lefkam.
It's no Gemara, but it's a fact. The Rambam says a fact.
No. The Rambam didn't say a fact based on his own understanding.
He said a fact. Now it's a fact.
But it's a fact. If you hadn't seen these Gemaras, you would have never jumped in an hour ago if I would have told you that meat is lefkam.
Maybe we would.
Okay, so, we have no reason to say that. Okay?
The Shach's the first one to introduce this, that Rashi argues on the Rambam?
Everybody says that. Actually, the other two Rishonim also argue on the Rambam. They hold there's no such makar. I don't they say before. I don't remember. Okay? Everybody says that, everybody else says that only according to the Rambam do you have such a makar. So we could judge whether it's true or not. We could sit on ourselves and sit around tables and say, is it lefkam or is it not lefkam? But we wouldn't assume like that. We wouldn't write in Shulchan Aruch it's lefkam. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. It's like if we want to throw vinegar as lefkam into ice cream, we say, yeah, vinegar sounds like it's lefkam in ice cream. But we make that judgment on our own. But the Rambam's come from the Gemara that said that, and Rashi has no such Gemara.
Now the Rambam stated this fact.
He didn't state the fact. He copied the Gemara. He didn't taste it.
Really?
Okay, well. Okay, well. So I'm going to help you with the reality in a second.
Did you ever write that the Rashi does not hold like your Rambam? Because he said that the kalim, the Rashi could say anything. What thing? We're talking about animal. We're not talking about animal fat.
From everything, from no matter what they made on those kalim, whatever they made on their kalim, it would be it's stam kalim in the We assume that they're in the So to maybe, I don't know if it's going to make you feel better, but. So before I go on, I'm going to pause this for a second. If we were to stand right now, we would potentially say the din is lakula. Okay. So now, but I'm going to tell you why. Why is it lakula? Because the Shulchan Aruch says the bleas are always lefkam. The Shach says we should be machmer b'shitas Rashi they're not lefkam.
Talking about Shulchan Aruch against the Shach?
No, I said the Shulchan Aruch says that the din is that they're lefkam, And even according to the Shach, it's only when we know that it was made with the trade.
Well, we're not talking about what we know.
We have no. If you pick up a bottle of oil, you don't know that it was put on a boat, and you don't know it was made of animal, vegetable plant. No, if you know, then we have a Shach. But if we don't know, when you have just a stamp piece of oil, a bottle of oil,
we know.
no. Okay, so we would potentially be able to make it, but pause. That's where we take. For now, I'm almost finished. I have another page. Okay. But so the following thought, which you'll see is correct, is something I heard from Rabbi Shach. Okay, he said like this. He said, I'm not saying everything. I'm adding things to what he said, but the general idea comes from him, and that's like this. The Beverages is Kashrus. Beverages is Kashrus. In Sim Kuf Gimel, he says Rambam says that meat is lofgam into oil. He says that's funny. He says we do that. We add meat into oil. So the opposite question of what I keep saying. He said, how can you tell me that's lofgam? You tell me the Gemaros says lofgam. I guess the Gemara might say that. He says, but I don't know. We do that at home. That's what we do. We add meat into oil. He says, how can you tell me that's lofgam? Okay. Now there are many people who answer that question. There's different answers to that question.
Where do we add meat to oil?
In Mrs. Beverages did that. Okay? That's how you.
In what?
At home, when it's cooking, when they do cooking, that's what they do. They mix things together. So he said. So there's different answers. And we're not focusing on the question. We're focusing on his answer. So his answer is, Beverages answer that question is like this. He says, well, when the Gemaros said the blias of meat are lefkam into oil, that was talking about plain meat into plain oil. He says, but we do things to the animal fat. We dress it up. We add tavlin. Okay, we spice it up to the point that it's no longer nice time lefkam. Okay, so I'm not even focusing on the fact that it's tavlin. But the Beverages' point is that it's because of the awful taste of that oil that's why it does sound lefkam, like the Rambam said. But if we do something to it, we could potentially make it as not sound lefkam. Now, remember I told you that our shayla, that the shayla that we have about vegetable oil made in a plant that's for animal and vegetable, the problem is that it's deodorized. Okay? So listen to what I just said to you. It deodorized. We took animal fat that tastes awful, like the Rambam says, it has this awful taste. I forgot the exact words. And we remove the negative taste. So the Beverages says we fix it up by adding tavlin to it. Okay, we do the opposite. Instead of fixing it up by adding tavlin, we fix it up by putting it through some fancy machine that takes away the negative taste to it. So even though the Gemara says, and the din would be is that it's nice sound lefkam, but it's only nice sound lefkam like the Rambam says, because it's so awful, it tastes so awful. Rega. It's so awful that we understand why why the Gemara would say that it's nice sound lefkam. But Dr. Beverages said, if we add tavlin, or Zakar, if we take out the bad taste to it, then we have no longer recorded it's nice sound lefkam. Then we go back to Mrs. Beverages, who used to add mixed animal fat with oil. In fact, the famous plant that used to make animal fat and vegetable oil together, we did both together. The famous plant that many of us know about that did that, you know what? That plant used to sell a mix of animal fat and vegetable oil. They didn't just make them on the same kiln. They sold a product that was a mix of the two of them. So obviously it's not next down lefkam. They sold them together. It was one mixture, whatever, 60-40 of these two things together. And the reason why they could do that was because
because the vegetable oil gave too much fat into the meat.
Because they deodorized it. They got rid of the awful part of it and they made it better. Now, so all that would say to us is, Rega, let me see if I can answer yourself a question. So that means to say is, when we talk about the fact that it's made in a factory that makes animal and vegetable products, then seemingly that Gemara doesn't apply to us anymore. However, in the case of the boats, we have good reasons to say that it still should apply. Okay, in the boats, first of all, it's not deodorized, and second is, Mashgiach, who visits a port where this product goes in and out of, says that when they open up the hatch, or whatever they open up, whatever the top of it, probably not like a little screw thing on top, but when they open it up, everybody runs. It's such an awful stench coming out of the thing. Think about it, they're dumping in animal fat, they probably don't even refrigerate, dumping in animal fat into this thing. He says, the stench is horrific. Okay, now, whether it's technically edible or not, there's a whole diyun. Okay, if you read, yeah, when you read the articles about the diyunim about whether it is edible or it's not edible, the technicality is not important to us, whether by law or by technically whether it's edible or not edible, but that stuff is, when the way the Mashiach describes it, sounds to me like the Ramah, okay? That it's worse than any other things. I forgot what the Ramah says with the pigs, I don't know what the words were. Okay, how awful the stuff smells is. So that is to say, so in the case of the vegetable oil made in a plant for animal vegetable products, then l'chara, this cooler that we have here in Ardin and other places, l'chara does not apply. Okay, it's deodorized.
Is it
But
now that it's been trekking across the sea?
it's probably that also. It's probably the animal fat. Well, we see animal fat leaking. But yeah, also, but it's been trucked across from this part of the country to the shore also, yeah. But l'chayr by the boats, it's a reasonable tzad to say that it might be mutter. That is to say that I told you there are 3 shilas to the boats. Those 3 shilas assume that there's potential this over here. Okay, none of those shilas would be in the gear if we have the din that says there's no samafka. Okay, do you have a question?
I have a question, yeah. So, but the fully deodorized oil only be at the end of the process. So when it's still in the machine, it's not at the very end where you just get...
Okay, that's fair. So you're saying in the first half of the machine, the police might be lifgam. In the second half of the machine, they would not be lifgam.
Well, wherever
At some point, there's a crossover. Then, okay, so now we have to sit and weigh: is it bottle before, bottle afterwards? What I'm saying, but we.
It would seem that they wouldn't get most out until the end. That's
So we could ask a chemist that question, But what I'm saying, but at least we can understand that in this case we have a shayla. We say, in this case we're not talking about the same oil that the Gemara was talking about. But the Ramah says the oil smells so awful. That's not our oil. That's the whole point of the machine is to make it not that oil. That's the whole point of it. By the boats,
so we're dealing with the oil stuck in the machine. That's like you're dealing with the oil that's still in the machine. So
that's right.
That's why
It's very deodorized. No, it's very deodorized.
No, it's not, because it doesn't get deodorized until it leaves the machine. So stuff like
It gets stuck on the top. No.
Stuff on the top is the stuff that's there that hasn't been deodorized yet.
Of course it is, because what happens is it's not like, you can only get deodorized on the bottom shelf. If it sits there on the top, but it just more and more heating eventually gets all the stuff out of it. So if it sits on the top for 12 years, it's not going to be...
If you're worried about the end, so now you just have deodorized the end.
So the shayla is, but is that the end mixed in? The Shulchan said it's always lefgam. I don't have to worry about being mixed in.
Even if it gets deodorized?
No, so that's where the point is that since it's deodorized, we don't have this cooler to say that since it's automatically lefgam.
But this machine is picking up, if you're worried about it, it's picking up actually straight at the end.
Right.
So once it gets
deodorized, now that the end is not lefgam. So it is a shayla. Right, so in the vegetable, in the shayla on the right side, the vegetable oil, that in the animal plant, that is a shayla. So that's my point, that in that case, the fact that it's deodorized means that we don't have the kula, and we have to be mafra in that case.
And the keeper's trust we're worried about refined stuff.
In his trust, he's holding refined stuff that is a shayla. Okay, what's being moved back and forth is ready to eat,
Why did Rabelski ask it because he saw the end in there? Why does that make it any worse? Mashar can get the whole keli anyway.
No, because the kli is only the metal of it. So let's say there's 100 cubic inches of metal.
But the 100 filled with stuff.
It's flowing through. It's flowing through. So, but if the whole thing would drain out, we'd say, there's only metal left. But if let's say there's 100 inches of metal, and there's another 100 inches, right? It adds on.
The whole thing is straight. The glob is all kinds of stuff.
We assume the glob is all trade.
Why?
Well, okay, I don't know what you would call it. If let's say it's 50% animal fat and 50% vegetable oil that was just cooked with animal fat. It was just cooked with animal fat also. The vegetables.
That it's all hanan.
Right, it's all,